Hello everyone, I'm the Saxy Gamer, and today we're here to talk about the top 3 best scientific civs in Civilization 6. Maybe you've just picked this game up on Steam Summer Sale now that the Anthology Edition is out, and you're looking for which civs to play. Well, that's exactly what we are going to be talking about in this video. It's been 3 years since I last made a video like this, so I figured it's time for a refresh because a lot of things have changed and a lot of things have been added, so there is a lot of stuff to talk about. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at our first leader. The first one on our list today is Korea, and I should mention that this list is in no particular order just because there is a lot of variability in Civ that can kind of flip these rankings around depending on what type of spawn you get or anything like that. But speaking of that, Korea is one of the civs that is the best at dealing with this variability because they are a super consistent civ that is good in pretty much any game, and they're really easy to play. So if you are a beginner and you're looking for a science civ to play, I'd recommend giving Korea a try. Their Sayawan district is what makes them super consistent because it pretty much guarantees you a +4 campus in every city, and then when you slot in the policy card that doubles the adjacency bonuses, this means you're getting an 8 campus in all cities, which is pretty much impossible to mess up, and it gives you a ton of extra science yield. In addition to that, the Three Kingdoms ability will give you a little bit more science on all the mines that are around your Sayawan districts, and the Hwarang ability will allow you to get +3% science per governor title in a city, so you can either spread these out amongst multiple cities, or you can stack a lot of governor titles in one city for a max of an 18% science boost. Korea is one of the civs that I think is really great for turtling just because of the fact that you can have a few cities with a lot of governor titles in them and still do quite well. So you don't have to be super expansive, which I think is kind of beginner friendly. And you also have the Hwacha unique unit, which is pretty much a field cannon that comes a little bit earlier, which makes it even a little bit easier to defend yourself against anybody that might attack you. The only thing that I find Korea is lacking is some production bonuses because some of the other ones on this list do have production bonuses, and some of the other good science civs in general like to have a lot of production because it allows you to build the space parts faster, but Korea doesn't get any such bonuses, and you're even discouraged from putting districts near your Sayawan, so you can't clump districts up quite as much as you can on other leaders, so that's the only weakness of Korea. But as I mentioned, if you are a beginner and looking for a super solid science civ, that's a lot of alliteration, then you should go ahead and pick Korea. The second civ up on our list today is Japan, led by Hojo Tokimune, and this is taking the spot of Germany from the last time that I did this ranking list. And the reasons that I think that Japan have kind of overtaken Germany is just because I find it a little bit easier to get adjacency bonuses on your industrial zone. So the bonuses that Germany used to get aren't quite as effective as they are now, just because every other civ is able to get a little bit closer to what Germany used to be able to get, if that makes any sense. And Hojo is really good at taking that and making it even better because his Meiji restoration ability makes it so that his districts will get +1 yield from an adjacent district rather than 0.5. This makes it really easy to clump together a lot of districts and get good yields on both your campuses and your industrial zones. This means that for relatively little effort and not really a ton of reliance on your spawn, you are able to go and get a good number of campuses that are at least +4, some of them you can get even higher, and on your industrial zones you'll probably be able to get at least +6 or +8 just because of how easy it is to get the production bonuses on the industrial zones from civilian districts. So things like aqueducts or dams now will give you +2 production on your industrial zones. This ends up being +3 with Hojo just because you're getting that extra bonus from having adjacent districts. So with only 2 adjacent aqueducts, you can get a +6 industrial zone. Double that with the policy card, and you could quickly end up at industrial zones that are at least, 15 or 20 production. So very strong ability to get a lot of production and science just from this Meiji restoration ability. Aside from that, Japan does have some other things that help them with science victory. The electronics factory is a +1 more production than a normal factory. Not a huge bonus, but it does add up if you are going to be building a lot of these. The samurai unit has also gotten a lot better now since it replaces the man-at-arms. This means that you can rush it pretty effectively, and then you can take out your nearest neighbor, securing yourself a lot of land and making that many more spaces for districts like campuses or industrial zones. So Japan definitely have gotten a lot better throughout all the changes that have occurred since the last time I made this list, and that's why I think that they should take over Germany's spot. The third and final civilization for my list today is Arabia, led by Saladin. This one I feel like is a bit of a sleeper pick amongst the Civilization 6 community. I feel like Saladin often doesn't get the amount of science respect that perhaps he should deserve, and I think that he actually has a lot of capability for generating huge amounts of science per turn that a lot of people don't often realize because they don't want to play a religious game, which sometimes I don't entirely blame them. So Saladin is able to get +1 science per foreign city that is following his religion. This means that you will be able to stack this up pretty fast if you're able to diligently spread your religion all over your continent. This does apply to city-states as well because they do count as foreign cities, and you can combine this with the cross-cultural dialogue religious beliefs that has also been buffed since the last time I made a list like this, and this makes it so that you will get +1 science for every 4 followers of Arabia's religion. So those things together can combine to give you a ton of extra science. I have easily gotten over 100 science per turn from stacking these two abilities together, and it adds up very fast, and it's something that if you're able to make it pop off, it can really give you a huge boost in a game. The other part of Arabia's kit that I once again think gets slept on a little bit is the fact that he gets +10% science yield in cities with the holy building of his religion. This is ridiculously good, but a lot of people I feel like tend to not talk about it too much. People think that the Mayans are a good civ because they get that 10% bonus yields to cities that are within 6 tiles of their capital. Well, Saladin can get that in terms of science on literally every city that you build a holy site in, which means that you can get it in every single city in your empire for very cheap because of the fact that you get the 90% discount on your holy buildings, meaning that for just a few faith in a bunch of your cities, you can get an extra 10% science yield. This stacks up very, very nicely with all of his other abilities to give him a ton of science generating capability. The one thing here is that he is a little bit more complex to play than some of the other leaders. You have to know how to play a religious game, how to maintain your religion, and sometimes you can just kind of end up winning a religious victory whenever you're playing Saladin, but either way, playing Saladin using religion and science is a really, really strong playstyle. He also does have the Madrasa, which is a replacement for the standard university, and it does provide +1 science extra over the standard university. It's an alright thing. It's kind of like Japan's electronics factory. It will stack up if you have a lot of cities, but aside from that, it's not going to be a huge boost. The Mamluk, though, is another big strength of Saladin because it means you can go for a really nice mid-game push, kind of like what you can do on Japan with the Samurai. Having lots of cities is really helpful for science victory because then you can just build that many more campuses, and the Mamluk is a super strong mid-game unit that you can use to just demolish your nearest neighbor. If you're playing with religion, you can take the Crusade bonus to make this even a little bit easier, expand, slap down a bunch more campuses, and then you're going to be in a pretty good spot for a science victory. Arabia, just like Korea though, is lacking any production bonuses, which can make it a little bit more difficult to build those space parts, unlike someone like Hojo, who is able to get a ton of extra production. But as long as whenever you're playing Saladin, you are diligently planning out your industrial zones to make sure that you use your aqueducts and dams to get them on a decent level of adjacency bonus, then you're going to have a fine time just winning a science victory with Saladin. So once again, Saladin is easily a very, very strong leader in terms of playing the religion and science game. He is a little bit more difficult than the other two leaders on this list, but I think that if you're able to pull him off correctly, he can easily be one of the strongest science leaders in the game. And now I'd like to just finish off with some honorable mentions because I know that there are inevitably going to be at least 30 comments that are like, why isn't X-Civ on this list? So for my honorable mentions, first I'd like to talk about Australia. Australia is super easy to get high adjacency bonuses on your campuses since they get bonus science from the appeal of their tiles, so that makes them quite a good and consistent science civ. The Mayans, as I mentioned before, are also pretty good because you get that 10% bonus yields to all cities that are within 6 tiles of your capital. So if you're able to get a good spawn that allows you to get a really nice clumping of cities around your capital, you can get a huge boost out of this. And the observatory can give you a good bit of science if you're lucky enough to spawn in a spawn that has lots of plantation spots. Germany, as I mentioned, used to be on this list, but they were taken off just because of some of the things that have changed with industrial zones that make it easier to get bonus production on other civs that aren't Germany, making Germany's bonus to their production on the Hansa a little bit less effective in comparison. Nonetheless, though, Germany is still really, really good at being able to get a ton of production in pretty much all of their cities. They are, however, lacking an actual science bonus, which is kind of what's kicked them off this list. Scotland is still a very good science civ as well. They get a good percentage-based science and production boost based on the happiness of their cities. They're a little bit less good than what they were last time I made this list though, just because it is now a little bit harder to keep your cities happy. Anyways, thank you everyone for watching. I have been the Saxy Gamer. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like. If not, feel free to dislike. If you're looking for some more Civilization 6 content, feel free to subscribe. I will be redoing these lists for all of the victory types and then an overall list as well, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss those. But thank you everyone for watching, and goodbye.